If a nuclear exchange ever actually happened, geography would decide who makes it through nearly as much as luck would. Distance from missile silos. Which way the wind is blowing that week. How many other people are competing for the same square mile of farmland afterward? Analysts and scientists have actually modeled this out using real fallout simulations and population data, and the results aren't always where you'd expect them to be. These are the 5 US states that keep showing up again and again across multiple independent analyses as the ones with the best odds. One thing before we start, though. Nobody who studies this seriously calls any of these places safe. They call them safer. That difference matters, and we'll come back to it. Let's get into it. Most of these rankings come down to 4 things. How far a place sits from likely targets, military bases, missile fields, major cities, ports. Which way the prevailing winds tend to carry fallout. How many people already live there, competing for food and shelter if supply chains break down. And whether the land itself can actually support people long-term: water, farmland, forest cover. Score high on all 4, and a state starts showing up near the top of nearly every version of this list. Let's start at number 5. Number 5, Oregon. Portland wouldn't fare well in any serious scenario. It's a real city with real infrastructure, which makes it a real target. But cross the Cascade Range into eastern Oregon, and the picture changes completely. Those mountains form a genuine physical barrier, and since fallout in North America tends to drift from west to east on the prevailing winds, eastern Oregon sits partly upwind of a lot of the country's likely target zones. Some counties out there average fewer than 2 people per square mile, which sounds bleak on a normal Tuesday, but works heavily in your favor when the whole point is having less competition for water and food. Natural springs and aquifers run through the region, largely insulated from surface contamination. It's not glamorous, it's just quietly well-positioned. Number 4, Idaho. Idaho shows up on more than one independent list, and the reasoning is fairly consistent. The state has one of the lowest population densities in the country, and its interior is genuinely mountainous. The Bitterroots, the Sawtooths, the Salmon River Mountains, creating sheltered valleys that could blunt the spread of fallout carried on the wind. Volcanic soil across the state supports real agriculture, not just subsistence farming, and Idaho sits generally upwind of a lot of commonly modeled target areas. There's also a practical, less scientific factor worth mentioning. A long mining history means a meaningful number of residents already understand underground living and remote self-sufficiency. That's the kind of local knowledge that doesn't show up in a simulation, but matters when the simulation ends and real life starts. Number 3, New Hampshire. New Hampshire's biggest advantage might just be that it's easy to overlook. No major military installations, no population centers dense enough to register as a priority target. It simply doesn't come up in most targeting logic. The White Mountains dominate the northern half of the state, and beyond just blocking wind-carried fallout. The region is full of caves and rock formations that could double as makeshift shelter. Over 1,000 lakes and roughly 40,000 miles of rivers and streams mean water access would rarely become the limiting factor. Add a strong hunting tradition and dense forest cover, and you've got a state that was never going to be anyone's primary target in the first place, and could actually feed itself if it needed to. Number 2, Maine. Maine turns up near the top of nearly every version of this list, and for fairly straightforward reasons. It's tucked into the far northeastern corner of the country, well removed from major military installations, and its population density ranks around 38th in the nation, meaning fewer people are competing for the same resources if things go bad. Dense forest cover would help filter airborne particles, and the state's thousands of lakes and streams provide a genuine long-term water supply. There's an odd upside to the harsh winters, too. Frozen ground slows how deeply radioactive particles get absorbed into soil and water tables. Combine that with a culture that already leans toward self-sufficiency, hunting, fishing, small-scale farming, and Maine ends up better positioned than its quiet reputation would suggest. Number 1, Vermont. And at the top of the list, consistently, is Vermont. In one widely cited analysis, it scored the highest overall survival rating of any state in the country, and the reasoning holds up. Vermont has the second smallest population of any state, which means it offers almost no strategic value as a target in the first place. Its mountainous terrain does double duty. physically blocking wind-carried fallout in places, while creating sheltered valleys in others. The state runs on small-scale agriculture already, which matters enormously if industrial food supply chains stop working. Fresh water is abundant, and that same cold climate that makes Vermont winters miserable would also slow the breakdown and spread of radioactive material. None of that makes Vermont a bunker. It just makes it, by most available modeling, the best bet on the map. So Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Idaho, Oregon. 5 states that keep showing up near the top, across more than one independent analysis, for reasons that actually hold together: distance from likely targets, low population density, natural barriers, and the ability to feed and water themselves without outside help. But here's the part worth sitting with for a second. When Newsweek asked arms control experts about rankings like this one, the response wasn't reassuring, it was closer to a warning. One policy director put it plainly: nowhere is truly safe from fallout, contaminated water, contaminated food, or the long-term radiation exposure that follows. Another researcher went further, pointing out that even a relatively small nuclear war would likely trigger a nuclear winter. Enough soot and debris in the atmosphere to collapse global agriculture and potentially kill far more people through starvation than the blasts themselves ever would. He called it morally uncomfortable to even rank the best places to survive something like that. He's not wrong. So take this list for what it actually is: a real, evidence-based comparison of relative risk, not a promise and not a plan. If you found this useful or just unsettling in the right way, let us know in the comments. And if you want more of this, the real geography and science behind the scenarios most people never think about, subscribe. There's more of this coming.